Max Orland, Melbourne Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club.
Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Footy Club.
Scott Pendlebury from the Collingwood Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows.
This is Tom Mitchell. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Jake, the package stringer. He has spent time at multiple clubs and now he's got a third home, moving from the Dogs to the Bombers and now to the GWS Giants. What does this mean for Jake, for the Giants, for the Bombers, and for us that play fantasy footy across SuperCoach, Dream Team, AFL Fantasy and Keeper? How important could this and will this be for us in the season of 2025 and beyond? He's spent a long time in the AFL system already, Jake. Been a little bit of a maligned player. When you get good version of Jake versus bad version of Jake, they are completely polar opposites. The good version of Jake is all Australian calibre. He becomes the type of forward that is almost unmatched and really difficult to defend when he's at his peak. His physicality, his burst of speed, his size, his ability to take aerial marks, his impact across the scoreboard, let alone the occasional moments if he's needed to go into the centre bounce and win a clearance and get a stoppage for the Giants or for his previous teams, has been really evident. That's good Jake. Then there's bad Jake, where it appears to be lazy, where it appears to be disinterested, where it appears that his training standards and then by osmosis, his impact on field on match day is inconsistent and seemingly disinterested. Whether or not the Giants are getting good Jake or bad Jake will determine a lot ultimately about whether this is a good move for them or not a good move for them. Let's assume the best, shall we? I think that's always the best place to be, not only in life, but certainly when it comes to this trade. If the GWS Giants get the best version of Jake Stringer, they have just landed themselves a guy that's capable of kicking 40 goals. He did that last year, and he's done that multiple times across his career. You get a guy that can kick 40-plus goals into a forward line that's already got the reigning Coleman medalist in Jesse Hogan, one of the most promising young key position forwards going around in Aaron Cadman and Toby Green. All of them kicked 30-plus goals across this season just gone. So already they've got great diversity and scoreboard impact from an unbelievable contested and the best key forward in the game right now, according to goal kicking, and that is Jesse Hogan, a young gun in Cadman, and one of the most damaging X-factor players inside forward 50. You throw Jake, the package stringer, the good version of Jake's into the mix of this, he's now getting probably the best avenue to impact the game that he's ever had. So often as a forward at the Dogs and the Bombers, he's got the number 1 or 2 defender. Does he get that at the Giants? Well, if he does, imagine the freedom that gives to an Aaron Cadman or a Toby Green. I think it's more likely he doesn't, but how incredible is it as now for the Giants that the best version of Jake, should they be getting that, and let's believe that they are, a motivated and interested, a point to prove Jake. Well, now this team really can take themselves to the next level. Barring 2 second half fade outs in the finals, they looked as good as any team in the finals. And their back 2 to 3 months of 2024 was dynamic and chaotic and crazy good. You get another goal scoring player, another burst player that can add some midfield depth for a centre bounce or 2 a quarter, let alone the presence that he will bring to their forward line. Oh boy, this could be unbelievable for the Giants should all the variables land together.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Well, for the Bombers, it seems, though, they've been happy to let him go because they're pretty certain that bad Jake is not worth good Jake in terms of scoreboard impact. And so my biggest concern for the Essendon Football Club is, how do they replace these 40 goals? Langford was their club leading goal kicker with 43. Then it was Stringer with 42. And then you drop down to half of all of those. You're looking at Wright, Gresham, Jones, all kicking in the high teens for goals. Yeah, I know some of them missed some games through injuries, but this is now putting a lot of pressure on a young Nate Caddy to fill the void and impact the scoreboard with significance immediately. How do you replace 40 goals a year? Well, you're going to have to get 5 to 10 goals per game up from every single one of those players, and you're going to need Nate Caddy to have a 30-goal Aaron Cadman-style season just to replicate and break even. But they need to do more than just that inside forward 50. I know they're confident that the young next generation academy kid, Kako, that they're about to get is going to fix their small forward woes. And I think he should be able to kick in the teens to low 20s goals for them this year. Fantastic. That's great. But I still am genuinely concerned for the Bombers. How do they replace the goals of Jake? It's a lot of variables that they are putting and a lot of pressure that is sitting on the shoulders of some young kids in Caddy and Kako, and an expectation that Langford maintains that career best year and requires one of those others, whether it be the Gresham, whether it be the Jones, if he can get in the side, or Wright. I think it's one of those two that will squeeze in for that third kind of tall/relief ruck role. I'm a little nervous for Essendon, I got to be honest. Now, they clearly believe letting Stringer go is in their culture and their team's long-term best interest, but replicating these goals, it's not as easy as you might think. So good luck for Essendon. I hope they can do it. I think they've got the pieces that can, but they need a lot of variables to go right, and they need these young kids in Caddy and Kako to really step up for them early on in their AFL career. What does this mean for us in fantasy footy? Well, for the better part of Jake's career, he's been a 60s to 70s guy. He does pop the odd ton. He did that last year. He gave us a ton across the formats, a 119 in fantasy, a 111 in SuperCoach. Coaches are possibly hoping he can return back to that 2021 season where he ran an average of 91 in SuperCoach and was in the 80s of AFL Fantasy. But if you look over the totality of his career, that year seems a crazy anomaly. So to expect an anomaly to become normative, I'm not too so sure. Equally, when I throw in the variables of who's kicking goals in this Giants side, Hogan, of course, the presence that attracts so much of the ball, I just don't see the pathway for Jake unless he moves in as a full-time or a 50-50 split mid, which I do not see happening. I genuinely can't foresee a pathway where he gets back to that 80-plus average in fantasy and a 90-plus average in SuperCoach. I think maybe 10 to 15 points per game of upside is probably the ceiling, which puts him into a mid to high 70s, which in Classic, you've got no interest or value in at all. And in Draft, depending on your depth for keeper, you might have something late in that platform of keeper that you go, yeah, I want a piece of him. But politely, I think he's just a waiver wire, plug and play, if the matchup's right kind of guy or an injury comes. I'm just not too sure. So I don't think there's a lot of fantasy relevance for Jake. I think it's a potential vacuum that the Bombers better be confident these young kids coming through can fill. Otherwise, it's going to be another season of pain. While for the Giants, if they get the good all-Australian caliber version of Jake, this might just be the thing they need to get them over the hump and back into competing for a grand final yet again. But do you agree or disagree with my take on Jake Stringer? If you're watching this on YouTube, give the video a like and comment below and let me know what you think the version of Jake we're going to see in 2025 will be. If you're listening to this as an audio podcast, you haven't subscribed to the channel and give it a 5-star rating, we'd encourage you to do that now. And in the details of this episode's description has all the information about where you can get in touch with us across social media, where you can get access to your Coaches Panel merch and become a part of our Coaches Panel Patreon, and a whole lot more. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in on this episode. I hope you're enjoying these player reviews from the 2024 free agency and trade period. We'll be back again with you real soon, looking at another player that's moved clubs and looking at their fantasy footy impact for 2025.